Hi everyone, it's Booney. I'm back with another colleague in the Geek Therapy community, Dr. Gian Ramos, and he is here to talk a little bit about his work, his geekdoms, as well as a very helpful, very touching blog post that he shared with me for my website, and it's called Therapeutic Metaphors in the Hit Anime Demon Slayer. And I really appreciated your contributions. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for letting me write on your blog.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually a very fun thing to do. Like it got me really excited. It's been a long time since I've actually written something, so it was a good experience. It was fun. Just that, and one of the first things that I learned to do when I was diagnosed with ADHD was to whenever I get excited about something, like just use that excitement right there and then, and exhaust it so that later on you don't lose that steam, you know. And so when you told me like maybe you should write, I remember I wrote, I'll think about it. And it's like, okay, don't think about it, just do it. Right. And so I started just like at least making sure that I did something every day to sort of remind myself that I'm still working on this. Right.
Wow.
So
So you just did a little bit of executive functioning coaching for people on my channel, because that is a big question of how to time manage. Really is about energy management. How have you been doing with that? Like, that's really great advice, but sometimes we can't always get everything done at the moment, right? So how do you figure out how to do other things that maybe require a spread amount of time and energy?
um it really depends on what the task is, right? That one of the things is that I've I've learned to let my deviant attention just lead, right? So when I was on my I finished my third year of med school. I had this test that I had to take, and then I've said this story like a million times, right? And it's one of the hardest tests you take in medical school, and I failed it 4 times throughout 2 years. Okay. So I had 2 years that I had to work on this. And, you know, if you were to tell me, you know, what was the one thing you did to, you know, get over that hurdle, I can't tell you. There's so many, absolutely so many variables, right? And so one of the things that I remember doing is that when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I had my psychiatrist, he gave me medication, and I was like, okay, so once I take this medication, everything will be solved. Like there will be absolutely no problems, like my ADHD will be fixed. And that was not the case, right? And so I had a friend of the community, Jose Cardona, right? Um, he actually coached me through a lot of this period in my life that I was super struggling with studying. Like I remember going to BetterHelp, but they kept trying to give me mindfulness advice.
Oh, yeah.
And I was stuck. I was like, I know mindfulness, I know breathing exercises, I need something else. And they just kept going and going. And I was so frustrated and I was about to give up. And he was saying, like, maybe let's talk about your ADHD and let's see how that works, right? And part of it was, you know, I have to keep things interesting. I have to keep things fun, because the worst enemy is not laziness, it's boredom. And that's two completely different things, right?
Yes.
And so one of the things that I learned to do was when I was tired of reading the textbook, I would do questions. And when I was tired of questions, I would write my own textbook. And when I was tired of writing my own textbook, I would read the textbook. And then, you know, I would always change it up to make sure I was always doing something that felt new. And so, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like there's certain things that are boring. So I tended to do those things less. But when I was doing them, I tried to pair it off with something that I found fun or entertaining. So an example of that would be one of the worst parts of med school is the amount of things you have to memorize, right? And so one of the things that Jose told me was like, what if you change the language of memorization? And what if you tried to sort of make associations with things that you like? And so I had no idea what that meant. But eventually I got to this thought, like, whenever I play an RPG or something, I always play the magic caster, right?
Yeah.
I love magic. I love being a mage. Sorry, am I cutting off?
Oh no, you're back. You're
Okay.
back.
Okay, I'm back. Good.
Yes.
So, whenever I play an RPG, I play a magic caster.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why I like that. I like the idea of somebody who is intellectually like so strong that he's able to use that to his advantage, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I remember reading the Harry Potter books and seeing these kids being like complaining about how much homework they have. And to me, it's always been like, how dare you, you know? Like here I have to like study like advanced trigonometry, and you guys get to do something that you can apply
Mm-hmm.
and see like you can make something float in midair. That would be amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried to apply that to my medical knowledge, and what I
Mm-hmm.
did was I tried to make magical sigils that represent medical mnemonics, right?
Oh,
And so I would say like the 10 contraindications to surgery. So I would make a magical sigil that sort of represents all of those 10 contraindications, right? And so it looks like a magical symbol, like something you'd see in Full Metal Alchemist
uh-huh.
or something like that, right? But it felt entertaining. It felt fun to memorize something because I was applying it to something creative and something that I was very akin to. And so that helped me out a lot.
Oh my gosh. So everyone, you just found the study hack to survive medical school if you have ADHD, ADHDer. That is such a creative way to do it. Really, you're using your divergent thought to support yourself, that executive function strength, but also you had the help of a friend. You can't do this alone, you know? That's so important.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that was also one of the biggest influences. Like when you're studying for this test, you have no time for absolutely anything.
Hmm.
Um, the only free days you have are days where you broke down because you couldn't give anything else, and so
Wow.
you choose to give up, right? But you don't have enough time to plan free days, right?
Hmm.
And so for the first 3 times I was going through that whole process alone. And there's a lot of medical students who are able to do that, but I wasn't one of them. I require, some sort of peer support, right? And so after I failed the fourth time, I had like this mental breakdown. And sorry, the third time, I had this mental breakdown, and I thought med school has taken so much away from me. Absolutely everything. Like my friendships. There's people I hadn't talked to in
Hmm.
years, and they thought I was like mad at them, but it was just
Yeah.
medical school, right? And like I was like, I used to love doing this, but I can't see myself doing it anymore because all
Hmm.
I see myself doing is studying, right?
Hmm.
And so I had like this rebellious fit, and I was like, I'm gonna do something for myself. I'm gonna do something that makes me happy because I owe that to myself. And
Yes.
so what I did was I got married to my girlfriend of 12 years.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, we met in high school. Um,
Sweet.
and so I got married to her, and we had saved up ever since we graduated high school for a honeymoon. And it's so just so happened that we had enough money to go to Japan,
Hmm.
which is literally on the other side of the globe from Puerto Rico, where I live. And so we went to Japan, and that was like such an amazing experience. But then when I came back,
Mhm.
I had a peer that supported me 24/7 at home, and I supported her. And
Mm.
I think that's one of the biggest things that helped me out on that last test attempt.
Yes. Yes.
Just like creating a space in my life. I had to move out of my house because I had a somewhat toxic relationship with my parents. And
Hmm.
there was a lot of expectation there. And there was a lot of not understanding my perspective as a medical student.
Yes.
Um, And so there was a lot. And changing that environment and being able to surround myself with people who understand and people who are sharing that same experience was a big thing for me.
I'm just so happy for you. I've been seeing you in the discords, over the years. I lurk, I disappear, but you've always been there. You're the constant. for
Yeah.
the geek therapy community. You have been for a long time. I really appreciate you and the work you're doing. It is appreciated.
Hello?
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I got cut off.
um,
You really
so
appreciate it.
yes, I do. Darn internet. Okay, so it was a moment. I wanted it to be okay. Anyways, thanks, internet. So you've gone through so much. You've had to metaphorically die a couple times, right? Those tests
Yeah.
will break you. They will.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to challenge your reality, your truth. Like, is it me? Am I strong enough to do this? Or is it the system? Is it the world? You know, is it worth pursuing again and again? This test keeps
Mm-hmm.
breaking me, you know, like you have to, and as an INFP, you know, you're an idealist. Your values
Yeah.
guide you to do everything. That's like a part of who you are. You cannot separate the two. So when you choose to do something, I know how important that decision is because it is an extension of your identity. Like a lot of
No.
people may not decide to do things the same way or have that thought process when they choose to do something. Other people may
Mm-hmm.
have external goals, right? But for you, it's a very internal thing. You're driven by your internal motivations to succeed or just to help people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that and you keep on getting knocked down, I can't imagine how the idealist heart would
Mm-hmm.
manage with that. So like for us, like you said, the support really is important. I know for us sensitive people, it's not always possible to find that community, which is why I want to kind of transition to like first of all, I think you deserve recognition for not giving up because you know breaks are important. Some people detour and do other paths in life. That's all valid too. But when you
Mm-hmm.
find your cause, like that's it. You keep
Mm-hmm.
going, right? You can inspire other people
Yeah.
with your story to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's the amazing
Yeah.
part of you too. I hope you I hope you realize
No,
that. I know sometimes INFPs do
thank
not.
you.
um, oh yeah, I wanted to transition to since the community is not always possible, you have found multiple ways to cultivate community for others as well as yourself. Do you mind sharing some of those realms of community? Even anime, I think we could kind of throw that in here too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the central things that brought me to psychiatry
Mm.
is this idea that in mental health in general, um, I think it's something, it's a field that is a lot more relatable by the nature that we've all gone through harsh times and
Yes.
we've all experienced happiness. And there's something universal about the realm of psychology and psychiatry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And whenever you hear a story, or at least whenever I hear a story of somebody that is struggling, there's a part of my brain that, no matter what, will always connect it to my experience, right?
Yes.
And in the bad side, that could lead to bias, right?
Uh-huh.
That could lead to us forming our biases and judging people for them. On the good side, that's where we find our empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so as a central thing of building community, it's this sense of empathy, this sense of we share something that brought us together to the same point, right? And so when I was when I failed my first time, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a point where I was completely lost in my career. I couldn't communicate with anybody in my medical school because there was like absolutely no communication. There was no internet, there was no electricity,
Mm-hmm.
nobody was going to the university. So you had absolutely no idea what was going to happen with my life, right? And so I just so happened that I had pre-planned a rotation in New York. So I had to fly off to New York, not knowing whether even that thing was still on,
Oh.
right? Because like everything was destroyed in Puerto Rico. Um, And so I went to New York, and I was at a point in my life where I was staying at my brother's apartment, but he's a surgery resident.
Mm.
And so he has absolutely no time for anything but surgery. And he
Yeah.
works in a hospital 24/7 pretty much. And I was alone in his apartment. And so that's when I found podcasting.
Mm.
Because if on my commute from my brother's apartment to work, I could feel like I was talking with similar minded people. It sort of felt like I had a surrogate sort of connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's literally a parasocial relationship that I built up, right? And so when I was looking for podcasts, I was like, I don't know, I like geeky things. I like psychology, so let's mash those up. And that's how I found the geek therapy community. Um, I literally listened to those podcasts daily, and it felt like I was talking with friends and with similar minded people, to the point where when somebody does something that I feel positively impacts my life, I feel obligated to send them a message,
Mm.
right? Either a DM on Twitter or something. Because if there's one thing, as an INFP, as someone who's an idealist,
Yes.
I feel like I've been too many times in this sort of situation where I feel like I start this project and I start something because I want to do good in the world. I want to do something great. And then you do it and it feels like you just went through a lot of work, and it went unrecognized, right?
Mm.
Or it goes about unseen. And if there's one thing I don't like, is seeing other people just be amazing at what they do, being people that I admire, and then not knowing that, right? And so I literally sent a Twitter DM to Josue, and I was like, this is how your podcast changed the way I cared for my patient. And I talked about that in tags, right?
Yes.
Um, and so I just told him that I had absolutely no expectation of him writing back, but I just wanted him to know, like, hey, you did something amazing for me. And I hope you know that people are listening and people are getting something from what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he's Puerto Rican, just like me. So when I came back to Puerto Rico, he was like, hey, Puerto Rico Comic Con is happening soon. Would you like to, hold a panel and speak with me and Gail Simone, who was the invited guest over there? And I was like, hell yeah. And that's how I started. That's how I started on the Geek Therapy community. Then I got on the Discord, and for me, Discord is, as somebody with ADHD, it feels perfect for me. It's not a Discord that is super extra active, but whenever somebody writes, I have that small deviation of attention, and then I can come back to my work, right?
Yeah.
And first, at least for my brain, it's like it's perfect. I think it meshes perfectly into my lifestyle, and so that's how I sort of ended up, being so much on the Discord that I became admin for the
Mm-hmm.
Discord.
Yes.
And now I'm just super interested in watching this community grow, because I'm surrounded by so many people that are just amazing at what they do. And I think with tags, you got to see just a little fragment of that. Just teachers and psychologists and counselors and life coaches and psychiatrists, and so many people who are just interested in the same thing because they empathize with each other's likes and each other's passions. And I don't know, that's just great.
Yeah, I'm crying a little bit from your story. I resonate a lot with that because community is hard to find, but you took that leap of faith. It's so scary to get rejected, but you were brave enough to do it. Like you didn't expect an outcome. You just wanted to share gratitude because you know how it feels like to be unnoticed, or to not hear that your contributions mattered and impacted someone. Like, you did that. So it's amazing. And then look at how far you've come now.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It is.
You're amazing. I wish I could see you because you're amazing. I really do appreciate you, and just the way you express everything too. You're such a wordsmith. You're so eloquent with your language and intentional speaking, your word choice. Are you a poet?
Mhm.
I This is a tangent. Like I'm just wondering, are you a poet? Do you write? You get cut off
I'm
again.
sorry, you got cut off, and I didn't hear what you were saying.
I praise you about your writing, and your
Mhm,
language choice. So
mhm.
eloquent, beautiful,
Yeah.
very intentional with your word choice. I was
Mhm.
wondering if you are a poet or write, like creatively.
I when I was younger, I used to write a lot. I got a so let's see, from first grade, I think in kindergarten, I had this kindergarten teacher who was doing this sort of like research, and I was the subject of that research. And it was a lot about teaching kids how to read and write early on.
Oh.
And so um, I think she was like the main influence. That from then on, I wanted to write little stories and I wanted to write little essays, to the point where my mom says that when I was in third grade, I would volunteer to give class. I would tell the teacher, "Hey, I want to give a little class on Egypt," and so the teacher would actually give me that space.
Oh.
Um, but over time, I really enjoyed exploring ideas and putting them on paper. Um, and there was this other teacher in high school this time. It was the first time I took a elective for creative writing.
Mhm.
And I remember that the way the class worked was that we each wrote our own thing, and then we peer reviewed everybody else's work,
Mm.
right? And so I remember that my first peer review that I did for other people was like, I didn't like it. I liked it. It was nice. And so she sat me down and she was like, "This is not how you do reviews." Like, and I remember being so ashamed and being so like, it was horrible. But one thing it taught me was that she sat down with me and she was like, "Okay, so think about the voice. Think about how they're trying to write. Don't just think about grammar and syntax. Like, think about if you could find a synonym for this word, take out a thesaurus and think
Mhm.
like if you find a good synonym for this word that fits better here, like let them know." And
Mm.
so I started correcting a lot of work and I started doing a lot of review. And I think that's the best way to brush up on your writing skills. It's reviewing other people's works, because you learn a lot from other people's experience and other people's voices. And then you can use that to your own advantage when it's your turn to write. And
Yes.
so in college, I loved whenever I had a final exam that was like write a 5-page essay,
Uh-huh.
I was like, that's my thing, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I have multiple choice things, not so much. In
Mm.
medical school, it's mostly multiple choice.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot of that in medical school. Like
Mm.
I didn't have the energy to write. And so, but that's part of why when you told me to write on your blog, I was like, oh, writing, I forgot I could do this. I forgot this is something that I enjoy. And so that's why I jumped on it so quickly.
Well, you just dropped so many truth bombs and relatable things for people who are divergent thinkers, highly sensitive people, people maybe ADHD, or just you're relatable to so many communities of people that I hope that we can spread this conversation to as much as possible, because is a way of how you share.
Mhm.
You're just you're a beautiful sharer. I don't know else how to describe the way you have this resonance with authenticity. You really do care about people. You do care about sharing emotional experiences and overcoming, pushing through some of the most terrible things that could possibly happen. And yet you found community and you're here and you're helping. Like that
Mhm.
is the heroic journey that we wish everyone to go through and come back out to share their light with the world. And you're doing it, and I'm just additionally grateful for you, because I think INFP men are pretty rare. It's I don't think I know INFP men actually. Oh, I know a couple. Sensitive, empowered
Mhm.
to change the world in their own ways based on their values. I will protect you with every breath that I have when I find INFP men. You're my special little. Put you in my pocket. Yeah, you can come out once in a while, but you just got a spot in my pocket too. Is that okay? I didn't even ask for permission. Oh my gosh.
No, that's fine. I live in many pockets.
Ah, okay. You can just jump around, borrow time.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit about your blog? Because when I did read it, I knew right away this person's a writer. This person has a
Mhm.
gift for written word, language, shared experience through it's just, I hope people will read it. I'm going to link it in the description, but I just love the way you wrote it. It's poetic the way you described. It's just mindfulness stuff, but you made it more than just mindfulness. Like, damn,
Mhm.
dude. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So as you know, I have a podcast named the Otaku Ryoho podcast, which translates as geek therapy, but in Japanese, right? Um, and so part of that podcast is me trying to transform my experiences with anime and my lived experiences with taking these narratives and applying them to my own life and my experiences and developing that skill,
Yes.
right? And so I think there was this post in the geek therapy forums asking for ways to use Demon Slayer in therapy. And so, that sort of things really gets my gears going,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes me think, okay, how can I use this narrative if I had a patient in front of me and this patient told me, like, nobody understands me. I feel like the world is a terrible place. My parents keep trying to force this sort of lifestyle on me, and that's not what I want, which are typical stories that I get from a child and adolescent setting, which is where I
Yes.
work. I always try to reach and see what about their experiences matches their love of media, right?
Mm.
And so if I had a kid that had those sort of thoughts and then told me, like, I'm a fan of Demon Slayer, I immediately have to find ways to make that connection, not only to let them know that talking about media is good in this setting,
Yes.
but also letting them know that I understand that media and I would want them to see themselves in a way that they love. And this is a weird way to explain it, but it's a lot better for me to talk about. Um, so there's two ways we can go about a story of mental illness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could say I'm depressed because I have lack of sleep. I have a deficient attention. I suck as a human being. I'm always sleeping. I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing I can do, right? And you can say I feel like Naruto,
Mm-hmm.
right? Naruto is like the main character in his series. He's somebody we are encouraged to look up to, but they go through mental health like associated experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go through what we would describe as depression. They go through anxiety. And so it's a lot better to talk about Naruto than to talk about your failings and your misgivings,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in this case, I was thinking about, how can we use the metaphor of Demon Slayer in order to, teach kids these sort of skills. And the truth is, it doesn't only apply to kids. Like, it can
Yes.
apply to absolutely anyone, like my mage example earlier on today, right? Um, so I was thinking, so whenever you see a series that has some sort of discipline, like a
Mm-hmm.
warrior, and that's something I wrote in the blog post. Like, if you're talking about Jedi's, if you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about ninja, a lot of
Yes.
these martial arts or disciplines come with a philosophy that's attached to it,
Yes.
and you can co-opt that philosophy so that it's simpler for other people to receive that, right? And one thing I talked about is that most of the main characters in Demon Slayer have breathing techniques, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling whether their breathing technique is actually adjacent to actual mindfulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can co-opt that metaphor, right?
Yes.
And we can ask ourselves, when Tanjiro, the main character, breathes in and focuses, what does that remind us of? It reminds us of mindfulness breathing techniques,
Mm.
right? And when you put those two together, you can sort of co-opt that metaphor and tell kids like, okay, so if you breathe deeply and you practice this exercise, you can notice how your focus improves. You can notice how your heart rate decreases, and you can notice how you can be more effective in what you're doing in battle, just like Tanjiro is, right?
Yes.
And that just feels awesome. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't you want to be a demon slayer
Yes.
instead of a kid that is not doing well in school?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want to be, a Jedi who is able to master their emotions instead of, this kid who everybody says is a truck, right?
Yes.
That's why co-opting these metaphors are so important, and that's just one example of what I wrote about in the blog post.
Yes. I love that you do that. There's so many different facets of or disciplines that do this, and the way you explain it is just clear, relatable, easy to apply. I don't think people can dispute how useful a story can be when it's such
Mm-hmm.
a rich type of world as well. Like anime is amazing because there's so many episodes. There's so much story to it that you can feel like when you want to escape, for those of us who are divergent thinkers and feel like this world isn't made for us, I think that's what we
Mm-hmm.
need. You know, a lot of us feel like we don't belong here. A lot of us feel like we're so misunderstood. Like I wanna wish like I could bend, the elements. I want to be a waterbender. I wanna I wanna walk on water, dude. Like I wish I could and talk to the trees, things like that. But like it's a nice escape and to know that so many people feel the same way. Maybe not in similar intensities, but I think when you connect with people and trust them enough, even if they
Mm-hmm.
don't feel the same way about your fandom, they'll just
Mm-hmm.
accept that this is your world and your reasons for feeling so connected to it too. There's no judgment.
No, and not only that, like you just threw out an example of waterbending,
Uh-huh.
right? And you were telling me how overwhelmed you can be in this world that feels like it doesn't get you. But
Mm-hmm.
what is waterbending? Waterbending is Tai Chi, right? And you literally just brought out an example of how we look up to figures who can master their emotions. We look up
Mm-hmm.
to figures who can, you know, find better relationships with their body and their existence in this world. And if why would I not co-opt that, right? Why would
Yeah.
I not say, wouldn't it be cool to be a waterbender? Let's learn Tai Chi. Let's look up
Yeah.
what it is about these techniques that has helped people for millennia control their emotions and be able to focus on the present moment while not only helping your mind but also
Mm-hmm.
your body, right? As a medical
Yes.
doctor, that's also
Yes.
important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but also giving you structure, right? Giving you something to do with your life instead of staying at home and being depressed over all the things that you're not able to do and how overwhelmed you are with the world. I'm giving you the own tools. When you tell me you want to be a water bending, what you're telling me is, I wish I was this empowered. And what I'm saying is that by wanting to be that, you're already empowering yourself. Let's go
What?
into it. Let's into it. You know what I mean? Um, by knowing something that you want, you're sort of asserting your identity, right? And why you deserve to be in this world. So yeah,
Damn, you're
yeah.
so good. Sorry, I get excited when I resonate with stuff. Um, so the cool thing is like, even though it is fantasy-ish,
Mm-hmm.
people tend to call it escape, it's not real. You said so many things that pair reality in the ways people escape or enjoy their free time, creative outlet, Tai Chi
Mm-hmm.
is real. There's elements of reality in the things that we fantasize and the things that we escape in. It's not one or the other. I think that sometimes people may try to label things that they don't understand. because they want to make sure like, well, if I don't understand it, that means it's bad. It's not real. But you already proved over and over again that there's these elements of reality. Of course, there's a reference. There has to be a reference to reality and the things that we do that, like you said before, way in the beginning, the resonance of being a human being. That's not fake. That's not fake at all. So if we just, break it down to the simplest part of it, the human experience is so real. You cannot deny that when someone enjoys what they enjoy.
No, yeah. And going back to the concept of fantasy, right? I think as a society, we're encouraged to hate on the concept of fantasy, to sort of talk about, so you want to be a waterbender, you just want to pretend that you could, throw water all over the place,
right,
and be a warrior, because you'll never amount to that. So that's why you fantasize about it, right? But there's a very, 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 very thin line between fantasizing and visualizing.
yes,
Right. And I think that's one of the key skills. When I was writing sigils to memorize medical school stuff, I was fantasizing about being a mage. But what I'm actually doing is visualizing mnemonics in order to memorize a actual applicable process in my medical care, right? And I'm literally learning medicine through fantasy. So why do we have to hate on fantasy when it can actually be a useful tool?
yes,
Yeah.
right on.
Mm-hmm.
How come we never talked to each other before? It's so weird. Anyways,
we have on the Discord.
I know, but timing, I guess. Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I did disappear for a while for different depressive reasons, but I'm out again. Yeah. Yeah.
I've had experiences ghosting, also because I'm an introvert, right?
Yes.
But I'm somebody, I love people. I love interacting with people, but I always invest energy to interact with people, right? And so I always have to come back home and regenerate that sort of energy.
Yes.
And when I'm going through a tough time, not when I'm going through a tough time, just like in general, I don't like continuing to invest in relationships constantly, right?
Yes.
I'm the sort of person where I'll be like, I'm your best friend. I will be here for you, like no matter what, right? But that doesn't mean that I'll talk to you like once every 3 months, right? If like that doesn't happen, like that just doesn't happen. But if you come to me like in 5 years and you're like, hey, I need help, like I'll be there, that's sort of the way I see myself as a friend.
Yeah.
Because I like to invest in what's close to me, because I can feed off that relationship, right? But I can find it very tiring to have to keep up a relationship that isn't in my immediate purview. I think it also has to do with my ADHD, right? Yeah. Like if it's not right in front of me, like and interesting me right now, it might be a bit boring to my mind, but that doesn't mean that I don't care about the people in my life.
Yes. I'm going to repeat that because I'm a strong perceiver like you. And, so in the Myers-Briggs typology, the P's, we tend to our relationship with time is so different. And like you said, the purview, people do sometimes feel like we ignore or are not as devoted. It's not like that. Our cognition is just very different. I do the same thing. And so for those who did stick around with me, they understand as well that, hey, Uni, she's off in La La Land, or she kind of got obsessed with something. She'll be back, or if I really need her, I'll let her know and tell her, it's a two-way thing, right? But I do work on it for those who do need a little bit more attention and care. If I want to keep you around, I got to do that as well. So I love that we touch so many things. It's fun to do that. The NFP conversation is so fun because it's so deep too. I'm really excited to hear what the comments are with people on the channel. And because again, I'm going to repeat myself because all these important things that I want to repeat, you give so many INFPs hope. Like online, there's so many INFPs looking for representation you offer that whether you want to or not, you do. You offer a voice, you offer so much hope to overcome. And the beauty and darkness that we do carry within our heart, you express it so intimately. A lot of people may have a harder time sharing some things, and yet you accept that this is a part of the human experience. It's a part of my life, and I'm not gonna use it to define me, yet I will share because it is as worthy to share and it shapes me. I think other people, especially INFPs, may feel inspired or reinvigorated to do the same, because that's just kind of like our default way of being. And yet sometimes it gets shamed, it gets ridiculed, it gets smushed to be very small. And I don't want INFPs to be small. INFPs have a lot to offer. And you've shown that here, that you do, and we need you.
I really relate to what you said. It's like when I meet someone new, it's like small talk. Okay, that's nice. Small talk, that's cool. But tell me about how much you've suffered through the years, because I can really relate to that. And I can get on a deep conversation with you. And I would really appreciate that.
Pain now, please.
Yes, please. Which is why, whenever I'm talking to Josue on Taco Ryoho, like his favorite anime is shonen. He loves like the empowerment fantasy. He loves like these characters that are like bigger than life. And I'm like the complete opposite. I'm like, give me slice of life, give me teens going through like the harshest moments of their lives. That's what I need. I need you to make me feel something. Give me tears.
Oh, crying again because it's so relatable. All right, we're gonna do a part 2. We'll do a part 2 another time. We're gonna share this in the Geek Therapy group because you're amazing. Before we wrap up, I would like you to repeat some ways for people to find you online. So thank you so much for being with me. What are some ways for people to, like, how can they find you? Where can they contact you?
Okay, I'm an admin at the Geek Therapy Discord, which you can find in will you have the links on for that?
I will.
Okay, perfect. So you can find me in the Geek Therapy Discord. You can find me on the Geek Therapy Facebook, because I'm frequenting that more often now.
Great.
And so you can also find me at Twitter at psychogonically.
Okay.
I'll write it for you, so you can sort of put it in the show notes.
Yes.
I think those are the main 3 ways to contact me. Discord, I'm the Discord admin, so you'll definitely get a response immediately if you contact me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate your depth, your attunement to your humanity and the humanity of others, and just how open you are to sharing strategies that you've used for yourself as well as how you help others. I know that this is an asset, a huge asset to the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me this space. Mm-hmm. It's been a fun time.
Yes. Right. I will put the links on the bottom, and feel free to contact and check him out. And we'll share another conversation in the near future. Thanks, everybody. Bye.